Okay, so it's just after midnight on January the 21st, 2015, and there's been big breaking news in the last hour that King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia has died. He was 90 or 91 years old, it's uncertain exactly. This is a pretty big story because of the King's position in not only Middle East politics but world geopolitics. He was considered to be one of the most powerful men in the world, in the top 10. And of course his passing is going to have big implications for the region. It's dominating all the headlines right now. The new king is Crown Prince Salman, 79 years old. He's already been called the new king, so the succession has already been set up, but there is obviously going to be questions as to which sort of path that Crown Prince Salman, King Salman, is going to take. And this is maybe even going to have an impact on share prices and oil prices because of the position of King Abdullah in the Middle East. I think I've been digesting a lot of the sort of analysis on this, and there's a lot of interesting points being made. Firstly, he's often described as a reformer, King Abdullah. Under his tenure there was moderate reforms made regarding progress. Women got the vote. There was a little bit more freedom of the press and significant funding into urban development programs. But it goes without saying that Saudi Arabia is still a totalitarian state. It's an absolute monarchy, and that isn't going to change. It was an absolute monarchy under Abdullah as well. I think Abdullah probably was a genuine reformer, but a lot of his efforts were sort of bolstered back by conservative theocratic forces, which is very unfortunate. I mean, he had a very eventful tenure. 10 years he's been in power, but de facto longer, since 1996. He's been king since 2005, but it's really longer than that, his de facto power. I believe his predecessor had a stroke. Two major geopolitical issues during his tenure was the War on Terror and Arabian Spring. Now, Abdullah took a very robust line on the War on Terror, a major American ally, of course, trying to tackle Al-Qaeda within the Saudi Peninsula, within the Arabian Peninsula, I should say. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudis. So this was obviously a great issue of concern in the States as well. And to a large extent Saudi Arabia has been stable compared to some neighbouring countries. But I don't think anyone can underestimate the sort of things that are going on behind the scenes, the implications this has for the whole region. It's an irony that Salafism and Wahhabism actually began in Saudi Arabia. So the Islamist ideology that is now plaguing the world has its roots in Saudi Arabia. So it's a bit ironic that the Saudi royal family would then find themselves in the forefront of the war on terror. Of course there's a lot of cynicism about the American role in relation to Saudi Arabia, and that it is all about oil. I think that's probably a lot of truth in that. Personally, and people might say this is the wrong time to say this, but I think it's never the wrong time. Personally, I think we're far too close to Saudi Arabia. And I'm not going to say anything derogatory about the king. I don't think that would be appropriate, but as a country, I think Saudi Arabia has a brutal human rights record, and I am not optimistic that anything's going to change under King Salman. As I speak, a young blogger has been flogged for insulting Islam, and he is due another 950 lashings. That's something that's been put on hold. I will give credit to Abdullah where credit's due. He did make some genuine attempts at reform. He was also the first custodian of the Two Holy Mosques to meet a reigning pope. That's significant. And he had called for religious tolerance. So I do believe in giving credit where credit's due, and like any leader, there's two sides to him. He was an absolute monarch, so I suspect that there will be Saudi people reacting to this in a strong way. But you know, as a dissident pointed out on CNN, Saudi Arabia was a dictatorship. The people have no say at all in who their leader is. Abdullah was quite a popular king, perhaps because of his reforms, but let's not forget, this is a country that still executes dissidents under very dubious excuses. This is a country that doesn't allow women to drive, and this is a country with a very, very brutal human rights record. There's absolutely no question about that. And in my opinion, Western countries are far too close to Saudi Arabia. So, you know, I don't think it's inappropriate to make this video at this time. I believe this is precisely the time we need to be analysing our relationship with the House of Saud. And in terms of reform, well, like I say, Abdullah did make genuine reforms, or tried to, but that line has also been used for every new Saudi king. So, you know, what really happens on the ground is another matter. King Abdullah had reined in on the religious and moral police. That's a good thing, but Saudi Arabia is a very, very, very long way to go before it gets into the 21st century in regards to basic human rights. It may have wonderful medical health care, it may have highways and skyscrapers, but when we're talking about basic freedom, it's almost non-existent. There's very little freedom of press, dissidents are tortured and jailed, and women are absolutely second-class citizens. So all of these things are very legitimate points of view, and because the king has passed away doesn't mean they are any less important. If anything, these issues are going to be more important. So that's the big news tonight. King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia has passed away at the age of 90. Crown Prince Salman has taken over. He's now King Salman of Saudi Arabia, and I'm going to be watching developments. The funeral is probably going to be tomorrow, as is Islamic tradition. Obviously I want the kingdom to be stable. It wouldn't be in anyone's interest to see an unstable Saudi Arabia. I think the new king is going to be looking to Yemen. The situation is very critical there right now, so there's a lot going on.